So congratulations to you. I
Thank you.
mean,
Thank you so much.
first of all, before we even get to Aretha, we have to just touch on the fact that you're a Tony Award-winning costume designer. You are a award-winning set designer. You are a activist. You are a professor and head of departments at Fordham. I mean, when do you sleep?
I don't actually. I don't sleep. No, yes to all of that. And I actually also, I get a lot of help. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people, that's one of the things that I think was great about this movie is that we get to celebrate so many people's work, like it takes a village to do a film of that magnitude and of that scale,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Where are you right now? Are you in your studio?
I'm actually in Boston because I'm in prep for another show. I'm gonna give you a little clue.
You're kidding me. You're kidding. Do you know this? So the backstory behind that is so cool. And oh my gosh, congratulations!
Thank you. I can't really quite announce it yet, but like, yeah.
I love it. Absolutely. Fabulous. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh my God, the sky is the limit for you. I see Oscars in the future for you.
Oh, thank you.
No, I do. Like the work that the trailer, I haven't even seen the movie and I'm just wowed by the trailer and the still images that you guys have been able to share. It's been incredible.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Like when you got the call for Respect, like, were you like, did you drop the phone? Were you like, oh my gosh?
No, it's so funny because I'm really good friends with Liesl and Tracy. We've collaborated before, so I knew that this project, I'd actually kind of like helped them with research and all that kind of stuff. But, I knew that I didn't expect them to ask me because I was also busy doing, like, I was like, I was doing a couple of shows on Broadway and all that kind of stuff. And so, so when they asked me, I said, oh, yeah, I would love to do that, but it was also subject to a lot of the studio, like they needed to vet, the studios needed to vet because I haven't done a film this big. I rarely do films, the last film I did was an independent film, was like, I did an independent film for Netflix right before this one. So, the studios did a lot of vetting. So I wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, okay, great. Like I know who I am, I know I can do it, but like if they don't think so, it's okay, whatever. But so yeah, that was kind of like the thing. And then when the studios, gave the go signal, yeah, no, I was like literally anxious, nervous, everything, but also just super excited about like really getting the story sort of told, but and also like thinking about how I could co-create with Jennifer the Aretha of her making, her own Aretha, the Aretha that she could own, so yeah, no, it was all of those feelings. Yeah.
What was your process like to prepare for it? Did you like watch, go back and watch like her documentaries and films and listen to her music?
Everything. So like I started with words. I started with a lot of books, right? I always try to say like I started with words and then pictures and then everything that was not words or pictures, right? And so I think for me, I read a lot. I read all of the biographies, both authorized and unauthorized. I read I read on everybody like CL, Clara Ward, everybody that was sort of orbiting around her in that period. And clearly, I think part of what I think, what to me is important to understand is that unlike what Hollywood wants to portray, this particular Black icon, came from a well-to-do family.
Yeah.
She was upper middle class. Her father was a rock star preacher who was also, in many ways, the granddaddy of the civil rights movement, you know, because he was Martin Luther King's advisor, but also, you know, was a big proponent of social justice in Detroit, which was a big major city at that time, you know. And so I think a lot of this, you know, was important to me and important to sort of convey, because I think Hollywood wants to portray a lot of these divas as like rags to riches story, but no, she was not a sharecropper. You know what I mean? Like, so that to me was important, and that even in that sort of privilege, and even in that kind of background, trauma still happens, you know, and I think that's, to me, was important. But going back to the research, so, you know, and then I just looked at all of the photographs that were available for her within that period of time that the film tackled, right? And which in this particular period was her early childhood, you know, so we go like early 50s to the early 70s, you know, because we culminate in the Amazing Grace concert. But there were a lot of things that, you know, we didn't have photographs for, because up until the Columbia years, you know, she wasn't photographed at all. You know, there are a couple of family photographs and that's it, and most of them were in black and white. So, you know, I looked at a lot of like, I actually went to Black churches, right? Like in Newark, in Atlanta, and like say, hey, because, you know, not everything is on the internet, right? So if you go to a Black church, I'm sure you know this, but you could say, hey, can I look at your archives? Can I look at your old photo albums, right? And they would have it, right? Like they would have, here's the Christmas social, and here's here's the thing. And so you just look at through all of those, you know, and then I looked at a lot of like, you know, African American magazines, like Jet magazines during that period of time, and just like really looking at like all of those, right? Because not only is it period, it's also African American, and you want to be really, really specific about that. So that was sort of like my research, and a lot of it was in black and white. So I had to like conjure up a lot of the color, and we wanted it to be, we wanted the world that she, particularly in the early part of her life, we wanted it to be really beautiful, you know, like just like beautiful. So that first party is like all these jewel tones, they're all in gowns, you know, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Because I love that idea, this sort of like tension between, you know, ugly things happening in a beautiful, you know, environment, or like awful things happening to beautiful people, you know, like there's always that kind of like tension, right? And so that's sort of like the idea for the research there. I just like really wanting to honor all of that, and not, you know, not make it a caricature or anything like that.
I love that. What would you say you learned the most about her style in you know, going through the research?
That's a really great question. So what I've learned, you know, and maybe this is just me because, you know, I'm an Aretha fanatic. I think for me, unlike any other diva in her time, you know, Aretha was not a slave to fashion. You know, Aretha used clothing more than any other one of them to convey who she was, how she was feeling, what her spirit was telling her, and what her politics were. You know, so she wasn't like a mannequin. She wasn't like, and so you can see like
not somebody you're just gonna throw clothes on.
That's right. You know, and she wasn't also, she also didn't look at the fashion industry as something to aspire to, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna be, she wasn't a mannequin. She wasn't like, I'm not gonna be somebody's doll.
Right.
You know,
because at the end of the day, her voice was what spoke for her.
That's right. But also in every picture that you see, right? In every picture that you see of Aretha through the years, wearing all of these amazing like clothing, you see that it's not perfect. There's always a humanity that comes out. Like for me, I was like, just like really looking at it. What I've learned is like, I almost see her just saying, I'm gonna wear it and you're gonna take the picture and it'll be the picture, you know, and it'll be me as a human being. So there either is a strap falling, you know, the jacket is opened and she's like hanging out. You know, there's always this kind of like
falling and kind of like to one side.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
she was showing her humanity, she was so showing her sensuality. She
Yeah.
was, when she, during that really, when she was like really political period, she had the Afro on, she became really Afrocentric. And it felt more than anything, it didn't feel like a costume. Like she's not, I'm just going to put this on because I'm now political. It's like, no, she was always political, but she awakened to something more,
Yeah.
I would say, serious and left. She is her father's daughter, so she is political, right? Like her father is a social justice, like a civil rights person. But when she said, I'm actually going to bail out Angela Davis, like that is another level of like, I'm going to go there. You know what I mean? And so
You're going in, go all in.
that's right. That's right. And so I think part of that, like, she was unapologetic, and so, and I'm also going to say that beyond that, what we just talked about, she also she questioned fashion.
Yeah.
She questioned the industry itself, because I remember reading that, like in the 1970s, actually, or late 70s or early 80s, I don't know, you have to vet this, but like she really came after Calvin Klein and Valentino, and she said, you guys need to make bigger clothes. Now, this is from a period that we weren't even conscious of sizeism. You know what I mean? And like we talk a lot about it today, right? We talk a lot about body shaming, like, more equal opportunities for larger frame women and all that kind of stuff. But this woman was literally calling these designers to task at a very, very, like in the 1970s and early 80s, like who does that, right?
No one was thinking about that. Yeah, exactly.
So she wasn't a slave to fashion. And you look at all of her photographs, like she experimented. Like there are some like wild costumes, like there are some wild fashion choices. And you're just like, wow, this is a woman, A, who had fun, B, who was not afraid, and C, was not a slave to any designer,
Which was probably fun for her stylist. She loved fur too. Like I could just, over the years looking at those pictures, she absolutely loved fur, which you were able to recreate so much of, like these floor length minks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where did you source those from, or how
they're all vintage. They're all vintage. And I'm going to tell you a little secret.
Yeah.
That first fur that she wears at her birthday party is actually my mother's fur.
Oh my God.
I know. I know. I was like, I'm going to use this.
What an incredible behind the scenes story.
I know. It's like she's like, wait, because when she saw that picture, she was like, wait a minute. I'm like, yeah, I know. Don't worry about it. But I think it's so funny that you said fur, because fur is important to her. And the thing about fur for her is that it was armor. It was the way she protected herself. It was the way she said, I'm going to wrap myself. For somebody to have gone through that early childhood trauma, right, yeah, like her, right, and that informs the way, that's like that'll have an right. Yeah. That will have an effect on you for the rest of your life in terms of how you feel safe and all that kind of stuff. So the fur to her was an armor, like it was the way she protected herself, because the fur meant her aspirations had come true. So she's literally wrapping herself, protecting herself with her success.
Yeah.
And I love that, because like as a costume designer, as a storyteller, I'm like, oh God, then I can actually like tell that story. I can develop the fur trajectory. I can do that. I mean, this is a woman who literally, if you understand that that's what the fur represents to this woman, then you understand why she wears fur all the time, right? It's not because she's vain. It's because it's deeply psychological. I mean, who wears a fur coat to the Kennedy honors?
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin. Like how much security do you need to feel? The president of the United States is right there. You're surrounded by Secret Service.
Yep.
Right? And so to me, it's so deep and so beautiful in terms of like a humanity kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. That's incredible. I never would have. That's incredible. I love that. So in Vogue, I read that you created 80 custom made costumes for Jennifer Hudson for this movie.
Yeah.
And there were hand beaded gowns.
A lot. Yeah.
Oh my, can you share the details of like what was the most intricate costume out of all of them?
Yeah, I think the most intricate ones, yes, we did create 80, about 53 made to the film, you know, her whole wardrobe, she had around, you know, we fit hundreds of costumes on her. But like 75 to 80% of her stuff was completely custom, you know, it was bespoke, as well as like the men's suits and everything. So, you know, it was a way for me. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that Jennifer is completely a different scale than Aretha.
Yeah.
You know, Aretha wasn't very tall, right? And so, but Jennifer's 5'10", 5'11".
Really?
She's
Oh
tall.
wow. She is tall.
She's tall.
She's
And
modeling.
so, you know, and that's beautiful, you know what I mean? But like for me, I needed to make sure that I got the scale right so that we can scale her, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
film, yeah, I didn't want to be subject to like vintage sizing, you know? So that's one of the reasons why we created a lot of looks for her. But I also wanted to create the color story and be able to control that. But in terms of the most intricate costume, it's probably the one that she wears on the poster, you know, which is what she wears. You haven't seen the movie yet, but she wears it in when she goes to Amsterdam. When she performs at, there's a famous concert that you know that took place in 1968, and she wears it
Wow.
in Amsterdam. So, but that's the dress that she wears in the poster, you know, that you see everywhere.
That is
And
incredible.
that's completely hand beaded. It's not even fabric, it's strips of ribbon that creates a grid. We created a grid out of like ribbon and then beaded the ribbon, you know.
The goats. Okay.
Yeah, and so, you know, it's all like Swarovskis and like pearls, you know, all of that. Um,
Wow.
and then, yeah, and it's in this sort of beautiful pale pink thing that we did. So that's probably one of the most intricate costume. You know, it's heavy. It weighs around 40 pounds. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
yeah, and it's growing, and so it had to be laid out. It can't be on a hanger because it grows. You know,
And you
so it
need a
had to be.
couple of people to take that off after the end of the
Oh
day,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And so that's probably, and hundreds of hours, a lot of hands worked on that. And when I say like hundreds of people worked on the show, on the costumes alone, hundreds of people worked on the show, you know, because like it was, you know, it's hand beaded.
That's incredible. That is incredible. So you were also able to, in addition to Jennifer, you were able to work with some really hitting like entertainers. Do you have any fun stories to share about like working on set or working in the fittings with either one of them? I mean, you're looking at like Marlon Wayans and
Oh, Marlon was a
like
hoot.
so many people, it's like, wow.
Marlon was a hoot. Like Marlon was just, he would crack everybody up, you know, and like I couldn't even get through a fitting without just like laughing, you know what I mean? And God, I love Marlon. It was just such a pleasure to work with him. And he was also just very animated, you know what I mean? Like I remember a fitting that we did in his apartment, you know, because I had to like change a suit. And he always was just like giving me, like every time I see him, he gives me this, you know, because I changed my mind. And he said, "Oh, Clint, you changed." And I said, "Stop it." But also like there's you know, so every time he sees me, he's like, "Clint, you've changed." But
Love that.
he was such a great kind of like collaborator. And our last fitting together was during, what was it? It was during the presidential campaign. I remember him like yelling at the television at you know who while we were fitting. You know what I mean? It was just like one of those like, oh God, I love Marlon. Everybody was great. Mary J was amazing. You know,
Incredible. Was
Mary J
Jennifer and everything.
serious. Also, Mary J was a serious, like, you know, like a lot of people, like, yeah, she's a style icon, whatever. But like Mary J actually is a serious actor. Like she wanted to look at the research. She said, is this really what Dinah Washington wore? Like this is, you know, so I showed her all the research, she was like, oh God, and this is really interesting. She got into the history of it all. So she was really great. You know, everybody was great. Forrest was great. Nobody was not great. So that's the thing. Like we were so blessed with all of these actors. Not a single one of them was a diva. You know, like zero. Even like, and that started with Jennifer. Jennifer set that tone. You know, she was like never late, never late. never late, never missed a fitting, never. Like, and we had hundreds of hours of fitting. We started fitting in July. We started shooting in November. So July,
Wow.
August, September, October, like 3 months, you know, like weeks and weeks of fittings. Very professional, always brought the joy and never complained. Like we had like one fitting session, which was like 6 hours, you know, and if I didn't say break, like we would have gone on. Like she, you know, she's just, anyway, it was a great
That speaks to your design skills too. Like if they're sitting there and they're enjoying the clothes that they're putting on, and the, you know, that speaks.
You know, you do a little kiki and haha, and you do, you know. but I think part of it is like, you know, I think a lot of folks don't realize that you know, you're working with like any other, unlike any other department, you're working with human beings, right? Yeah. You're working with human beings who bring in their life experience to the fitting room. And so you have to be really respectful of that. Like, what are their, you know, what are their insecurities? What, you know, how do they perceive themselves? How do they use clothing? You know, what are the things that they're sensitive to? You know, all of that. So for me, a lot of work happens in that fitting room. A lot of acting work happens in that fitting room because they're actually formulating the character with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're saying, oh, right, this is why she wears this. This is why he wears this. Oh, right, in this scene, he's going to wear a hat and he's going to take off that hat. Or he's going to wear a hat and not take off his hat. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that kind of like, there's like a lot of, and I think those are the beautiful conversations. Whenever like, you know, like, crew asks, why are you asking for so many hours of fittings? And I'm like, actually, that to me is necessary because there's so many conversations that happen and it's so helpful for the actor. You know, designing. Exactly. We're designing, you know, and the actor's really like coming up with a character right there and then, you know what I mean? So
absolutely. What was your favorite costume? If you can name one.
It's probably that gown that I talked about because it, you know, it a whole village work on it, from making to being on set, everything, you know what I mean? And then one of my favorite costumes is the slip that she wears when, oh, you haven't seen the movie, but when you see the movie.
So I'm on pins and needles, like ready to see this movie.
When you see the movie, there's a slip that Jennifer wears when she's down and out, when Aretha is down and out, like she is down. Life has beaten her, right? And it's her most vulnerable moment, you know. Jennifer, this is the other thing about Jennifer too, because like one of our first meetings, I was like, you know, Jennifer, you know, like how we're dealing with a person here, a whole trajectory of her life, you know, highs and lows. The highs, you know, in a way that's easy, right? Like you can make a hand-beaded gown, that's easy. They just, you know, we just need money for that. The lows, like how far do you want to go? You know, and she was like, as far as you think it's necessary, you know. So in that scene, you'll see she's not wearing makeup. Yeah. No wig, not, you know, the hair is out. Yeah. You know, just like real, raw, like raw, exactly, raw, like, exactly, right. Oh my God. You know, yeah. She is in the, you know, Aretha's in the pit of her alcoholism and all that kind of stuff. And so, and then there's this beautiful moment where she sees her mother, you know, she sees the ghost of her mother appears. It's beautiful. I can't even, you're going to cry when you see that moment. Anyway, I say that. I say that because she wears this slip in that, you know, in that scene. Yeah. And I had to like, you know, I found that slip in Atlanta in a vintage store, and you're gonna kill me because I forgot what the name of that vintage store is, but I found that slip there. And after having
by chance,
what
labels?
Maybe it was. You know what? I'll email it to you when I find the thing. But I scoured literally the internet and the country for a slip, right? Because I was like, she needs to be wearing a slip, which is a very vulnerable scene. So when I found that slip, it was perfect and it fit her perfectly. But why I love it is that it provided, you know, although it's not a remarkable thing, it's a vintage slip. It's not hand beaded, or you know what I mean? Like it's nothing special,
Yeah.
but it provided an important part in the storytelling. You know, it was when she was most vulnerable, nothing, no fur, no beaded gowns, no nothing. And it really showed us kind of like the deepest kind of like wind, you know, it opened the deepest window into Aretha's soul. And I love that costume because, you know, it's a piece of storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I did see I'm winding down on questions, but I did see that Jennifer Hudson mentioned you on Oprah. Um,
Ah.
Oprah literally said, like, how did you
I know.
like costume designer extraordinaire, which was incredible, right? Because I think it speaks to, I've never worked with you, but I know that there's an activist side to you. There is, you're always rooting for the people on your team. And you've even in this interview, like spoke of your team members and spoke of the village that it took to accomplish this. And so it's really cool, you know, to say, I have you and I have your ear. And I would really like for you just to shed a few words or share a few words with those people who are aspiring to, you know, break into like opera and theater and film and, you know, who are really seeking to be the next Clint Ramos.
Oh gosh. You know, the thing that I'm gonna say is what it's going to be a little bit of a long-winded story, right? I'm an immigrant to this country, right? And so I came to this country and I didn't know what this country was about, right? And I learned about what this country was about through Black folk, right? I learned America through Black people. And I say that because I think part of what I'm going to tell everybody, regardless of race, is that go where the love is, right? And you need to surround yourself with people who believe in you and believe in the things that you believe in, and things that the people who will support your talent in spite of who you are, you know. And I say that because I reflect back to my young, you know, my young self when I first moved into this country, and who actually supported me, you know, and who really showed me what this when no one else would, right? Like, you know, literally a group of people said, you know, hey, come, you know, like you can work here. There's a place for you here, because the other side was not even paying attention, nor did they looked at me and they were like, really? And you know, and so what I'm going to say is that go where the love is. And I don't, you know, it doesn't matter where that is, right? If you have a dream, if you really want to work on something, and if you really believe that that's your calling, that's not a lie. That's who you are. That's, you know, you need to pay attention to that. But I'm going to say that part of being able to do that, right, is to actually surround yourself with people who believe in you. Right. And that's when I say, go where the love is. Don't waste your time chasing something that's never gonna love you, you know, or never gonna, you know, support you, you know, or is conditional with that support. Right. And I equate that to my first experiences here, you know, and that's why I've always been an activist. I've always been, you know, political, is because I learned about this country through a group of people who taught me the real America. You know what I mean?
You have an understanding. You have a keen understanding of what's going on through your own experience.
Through my own experience, but also, you know, And so for me, and so for me, it comes from a deep place of wanting to honor, uh, everybody. My activism is rooted in honoring marginalized people who are not, who don't have voices, and you know what I mean? Like that really comes from that. And I love that, that we're able to do that through art, you know what I mean? And so that's really, really important. But yeah, that would be my advice. I mean,
Yes.
all of us are capable of hard work, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all of us are capable of hard work. We're built for it. We're used to like working twice, thrice, 10
Sure.
times as hard, right?
Sure.
But I think one of the things that I think folks really need to understand is you need to go where the love is, Yeah.
That's really good. I love that. I actually am like gonna write that on my desk. Like I need that. I need to just see that like daily. That's a good mantra. My last question for you. If you could have a coffee with Aretha today, what would you say to her?
Oh my God. Wow, Jasmine, that's a profound question. I think I would ask her, if you could go back, if you could go back, all the way back, what would you have changed? Knowing her life, and knowing sort of the joys, but particularly the pain that
Yeah.
she went through. I'm always curious about how, like what people who have gone through what she's gone through, like what they would have changed, uh,
Especially given like that she had such success. You find that people, once they get that success, they're like, well, I would do it all again if I had to. But yeah, that's a really good question. Like, would you change any? That's a really good question.
yeah, I think that's, she would probably like give me shade, you know what I mean? Like just for, I've never met her in person, but I'm actually, who reached out to me, his name is Kenny Bonaveticola, her designer for the last 15 years of her life. Yeah, he lives
What
in New
an
York.
honor, Clint. Like,
I
oh
know,
my
he
God.
like reached out to me. So first of all, he reached out to me and he was like, hi, I'm Kenny. And I said, hi. He's like, I'm Aretha's designer and I've just been watching your work and I've been watching this thing. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, I'm like gonna die.
Incredible.
Right. But like, and so, and he was very complimentary and very like everything. He was really, really nice. And we have a coffee date. But like, I think part of what you asked is like, one of the questions I wanted to ask him is like, what was she like, like, especially in the last 15 years of her life.
Yeah.
This is a woman who had a costume change in her casket.
No, for real. Well,
For
no,
real.
for real. No, for real.
They changed her, she was in white and red.
Auntie had a costume. Auntie had changed one and changed two in the casket.
In the casket and in love with, and she was in Louboutins in the casket. Like, I want to know what that was like. I want to know what that was like,
Right.
and it was like, and unapologetic about her body.
Yes.
Just like sensual, and she, just like, sorry, this is who I am.
Yes.
You're gonna have to deal with it. I
it.
want to know what it's like to dress somebody like that.
Yeah. Well,
To literally save, like,
you know what
fill
it's
up
like?
space.
Yeah, that's incredible. But you know what it's like to recreate that. And from what I've seen, Clint, I'm so excited because this work looks absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely. It's Oscar worthy to me. I hope somebody is listening. Academy complete Clint is the one.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Because it looks incredible. And I'm so thrilled to know what you're doing right now. It's a breath of fresh air. I feel like I am relieved because you have like you have the keys and I'm so happy.
No.
Well, Clint, so thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for reaching out.
Thank
you for reaching out. No, this is a pleasure. And I'm so glad.
It's an honor.
And when I'm in Atlanta, we should get together.
Please, let's do. Please.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me.